Hello, and welcome to Secrets of the Short Game. Since over half of all shots played take place inside 50 yards, it is the most important part of the game. And although full swing instruction has improved dramatically over the years, short game instruction has not. In Secrets of the Short Game, I'll show you not just how to get by, but how to have a world-class short game. Now let's get started. Let's just talk about general principles of putting so that we have an understanding. Do we want the putter to go straight back, straight through? Do we want there to be an arc? Well, honestly, there are a million different ways to putt, and there's no one way better than the other. What's best suited for you is what we want to find out. Now, in theory, it would be best to go straight back, straight through, and here's why. If my putter is on a straight back, straight through arc, and I release the putter head correctly, the ball goes right at the camera. If I release the putter head a little early and release the ball early, it goes lower but still at the camera. And if I release it late, it still goes at the camera, only a little bit higher. Now if we have a putter on an arc and I release it perfectly, well, of course the ball goes right to the target. But if I release it a little early, it goes off to the side, and a little late, it goes off to the side. So in theory, we would want the putter to go straight back and straight through. However, it would be very manipulative for us to do that. And so we have to be practical. The putter is going to take a bit of an arc. Now this also will affect what putter we have. For instance, my putter here, which is a heel shafted putter, the head rotates around the axis of the shaft. So there's a lot of closing going on. The putter's releasing and closing through impact. Setting up for putting is very important to be consistent. Also, where your eyes are positioned is probably the most important part of the setup. So I have heard throughout my entire career over and over that the eyes should be directly over the ball. I don't buy into that. In fact, I find it to be incorrect. Your eyes should not be directly over the ball. They should be underneath the ball and behind so you can see down the line. Have you ever seen a sharpshooter with his head over the rifle like this? No. You see him looking right down the barrel. You want your eyes behind the ball so you can look right down the line of the putt. Also, you want them short of the ball so that you can get a bit of an arc on your stroke. If your eyes are directly over the ball, the putter has to go straight back and straight through without any curvature whatsoever. It's a very difficult stroke to obtain. So practically speaking, we need to have our eyes short and behind. As I set up for this putt, I'm going to put a ball on my nose and drop it, and we'll see where it lands. It landed right here. My eyes are behind, looking right down the line, allowing me to see where I want the putter to go and extending it to the target. That's a critical element in being able to see the line, read the line. If our eyes are directly over the ball, there's almost like there's a wall visually we can't see out into the putt. Also in the setup, ball position is critical. It's critical to be consistent, and here's why. As we move the ball back in our stance, we de-loft the putter. As we move the ball forward, we add loft to the putter. So we want to find that one point where the loft on our putter matches and gives us the perfect roll. We should start out at around 4 degrees of loft. That seems to be ideal for an impact. Now, as we move the ball back in our stance, we're de-lofting the putter. And so we need more loft if we play the ball back in our stance. As we move the ball forward, we're adding loft. So we need less loft to start with, because at impact, we want to have 4 degrees. Give or take a half a degree will give us the optimum roll. What is the optimum roll? An optimum roll is when the ball starts out with the equator going almost level to the ground and slowly turning over. And that's what 4 degrees of loft at impact will do. If we have less than 4 degrees of loft, it drives the ball into the ground and the ball will be bouncing. If we hit it with more than 4 degrees of loft, the ball comes up in the air with backspin and then hit the ground bouncing before it starts to roll. Where I choose to play it is off of my instep. I like it right off of my heel here, And this allows me a chance for the putter to have reached the bottom of the arc and actually start ascending at impact. It's already reached the bottom of the arc and it's slightly coming up, and the 4 degrees of loft gets the ball just out of its impression on the green and rolling properly to the hole. Now, although I prefer to have the ball off the instep so that I'm hitting the ball on a slight upswing, you can putt very well from the ball back in your stance. If you do that, one of two things needs to happen. You need to have a lot more loft on your putter, or you need to putt with your hands back. If you like to have the ball even forward of your front foot, you can putt very well doing that also. But you have to have either less loft or you have to putt with your hands way ahead. There's a lot of different ways to make putts. There are a million different strokes, a million ways to make putts, but there's one must in all strokes to be a good putter. That is, your hands have to continue to the target. All good putters have their hands continue down into the target line. If you stop your hands and the putter keeps going, that's first of all a sign of every terrible putter. It looks like that. You're adding loft, you're changing the face angle of the putt. Also, the putter head is traveling faster than your arms. Your arm has stopped and the putter's kept going. It makes it very difficult to control speed. You want your arm and putter to travel at the same speed and to continue down the target line. That's the sign of a good stroke that all good putters have. I've never seen a good putter stop their hands and let the putter keep going. Now, when we continue our hands down the line, which is critical in all good putting, there's a feeling, a sense that the player has of blocking it. We don't continue our hands down the line because we feel like we're going to push it. There are 3 things we can do to get the face to square up so that we can continue our hands down the line and we don't block it. The first thing is we can get a putter that closes more, like I have, which is a heel shafted putter, promoting more of a closing face, more of a hook roll, if you will, but squaring the putter face up quicker. The second thing everyone can do, and that is strengthen your grip. So the top hand, I've heard for so many years, should be opposing to the bottom hand, that they should be fairly equal. But I just don't believe that. I believe the top hand should be a little bit stronger. What this does is promote the closing of the face. This allows us to square up the club face and forces us to follow down the target line, otherwise we'll pull it. This gives the putter head a little more time to square up at impact. So a stronger grip can help us or allow us to extend better down the target line. And the third thing, if we still feel like we're going to block the putt, is we can move the ball slightly forward in our stance. So if I putt off of the heel normally, I might move it up just an inch, and it promotes more of a pull, more of a closing of the putter face to help me square it up. Those are 3 things we can do if we feel like we're going to block the putt to help square it up. There's one must in all strokes to be a good putter. That is, your hands have to continue to the target. If you stop your hands and the putter keeps going, that's a sign of every terrible putter. It looks like that. You want your arm and putter to travel at the same speed and to continue down the target line. There are 3 things we can do to get the face to square up so that we can continue our hands down the line and we don't block it. The first thing is we can get a putter that closes more, like I have, which is a heel shafted putter, promoting more of a closing face, more of a hook roll, if you will, but squaring the putter face up quicker. Strengthen your grip. I believe the top hand should be a little bit stronger. What this does is promote the closing of the face. We can move the ball slightly forward in our stance. So if I putt off of the heel normally, I might move it up just an inch, and it promotes more of a pull, more of a closing of the putter face to help me square it up. Another question is, should I forward press or shouldn't I? Well, a forward press can oftentimes get our hands so far ahead that we de-loft the putter, driving the ball on the ground. But a forward press is also good because it allows us to accomplish the one goal I said is important in putting, which is to continue our hands to the target. When our hands get behind the putter, it's harder to do that. When they're ahead, it's much easier. Therefore, a forward press does have its benefits. What we want to do is keep it minimal so that if I'm able to put the ball on my instep, I can put a slight forward press. Just that tiny movement there gives us the sensation we can keep our hands ahead, but not de-lofting the putter so much it changes the impact condition. Now, we've talked about a number of things in general about putters, ball position, loft, ascending blow, all these things about putting. And all of that combined equates to about 10% of making a putt. The other 90% has to do with face angle, has to do with where the putter face is aimed. That is the most important thing. In fact, I have played in almost 1,000 pro-ams in my career, and I have never seen one amateur aim close to being online. Nobody can aim the putter. We'll spend so much time later on in this instructional dealing with how to train your eyes, because face alignment is the most critical thing in putting, and it's exactly why so many different strokes are effective. All that matters is the alignment at impact. I can make the most beautiful stroke, and if my face is wide open, guess what? That's where the ball's going to go. It has nothing to do with the stroke. I can make the most beautiful stroke, and if the face is closed, guess what? That's where the ball's going to go. Where this is aimed is the single most critical element in making putts, which is why I have dedicated so much time to it in this instructional. Dave Pelz and I developed this device called the Putting Tutor, and this device is what has allowed me to work on my alignment. It's also helped with green reading and speed. But where it's really critical is alignment, because that's the biggest and best way for us to work on our putting. Now, what it does is it has a line down the middle of this triangle. As I put the face up against it, I know exactly where I'm aimed. I'm aimed right down this line. And so I take either a little laser or I get behind and I line it up and I put a tee up by the hole. Every time I put the face up against the edge of the tutor, I train my eyes to look at that tee. I train my body and shoulders and feet to aim at that tee so that I'm working on my alignment with my body, but most specifically with the putter face. Then I make a stroke. Now, I obviously pulled that putt to hit this marble. The only way to do that, since I know the face was properly aligned, was with my stroke. That's the fourth area that it helps. I have it on the pro setting. We have moved back a couple of holes so that it's a little bit wider and it's closer to impact. This will make it easier and less discouraging for those first starting out. But ultimately, your goal is to be able to use the pro setting and get every ball started online and through the marbles. If I make a good stroke, I should be able to get this ball through the tutor and into the hole if I have proper speed. Now, I can line up perfect. I can aim perfectly. I can start it on the correct line, and if I hit it too easy, I'm going to miss it low. But it's not because I misread it, it's not because I misaligned, and it's not because I made a bad stroke. I didn't get the right speed. That's an important area to identify. And also, I can have the perfect alignment, the perfect stroke to get the ball through, and if I hit it too hard, I'm going to miss it high. Now, both of those were read perfectly. Both of those putts started exactly on the perfect line, but neither one went in. It wasn't because of the stroke. It wasn't because of the alignment. It was because of speed. We have to identify what it is that's causing us to miss putts before we can solve it. And that's what this is all about. Training our eyes to line up properly, training ourselves to read the green properly, and training our touch to feel the proper speed. Before every round, I'll spend 5 minutes with the tutor doing hooked putts and 5 minutes with the tutor doing sliced putts. Then I'll take the tutor away and go to that exact same spot and try it without the tutor and see if I can still line up properly and get the right speed. But this will be the cornerstone to training our eyes for the proper alignment. It will be the cornerstone to helping us read greens. I get asked all the time, how do you read the greens? I train myself. I can't just look at a green and know it rolls exactly this. The amount of break varies given the speed, and the only way to do that is to be able to hit the putt and to be able to see if the speed is off, if it's too easy, if it's too hard. So I'll hit these putts over and over until I get a good feel on these greens. Now this is what allows me to putt consistently week in and week out on tour when we have varying speeds. A few years ago I spent some time with Jackie Burke, and he shared with me this 3-foot circle drill that he did. It has become the foundation of my short game, and it needs to be the foundation of yours as well. This is the area that is most critical because it's not how well you putt, it's where you putt from. At 3 feet, we can make 97 to 100% of all our putts at 3 feet. But if we move back just 1 foot to 4 feet, that percentage drops down to below 90. And if we move back another 12 inches to 5 feet, that percentage drops down to 75%. And at 6 feet, it falls to 55%. We have an exponential fall off. We need to get every putt and every chip inside this circle. If we can do that, we will make a lot more putts and chips just because of pure physics. If we can get 100 chips or putts inside this circle, we might make 5 or 10 without even trying to get it in the hole just because of the space that the hole occupies. But if we are getting every putt and chip inside a 6-foot circle, we'll be lucky to make 1. This is our goal, to get every putt and every chip inside this 3-foot circle. This is the foundation of our entire short game, this 3-foot drill. From 50 yards, lag putting, every shot that we hit is trying to get inside this 3-foot circle. If that's our goal, we need to become infallible from 3 feet. So I do this 3-foot drill where I make 100 3-footers in a row. I do it 3 or 4 times a week while I'm competing especially. Now that's not necessarily the proper routine for everybody. Maybe it's to just get around the circle once if you're a high handicapper. But this is the foundation, and there's a few tricks to it I'd like to share with you. Now to make these 3-footers, the trick that Jackie Burt taught me is 25-75. We want to go back 25% through 75%. And that really helped me because when I was going so long, my face was moving. My face angle would move as I would ease into the ball. I want to hit this ball aggressively, but still have it die into the hole. Now, we have a tendency when we go short back to get a little handsy. We have to keep our grip pressure light to combat that. So I keep my grip pressure light. I go back 25 and go through 75. That's the basis for the technique. But as I'm doing this drill, I'm letting the number get in my head, and I'm creating a rhythm with it. 1. I try to keep the steps the same. 2. 25-75. 3. 4. 5. After 5, I take the balls out of the hole because the hole starts to fill up. I try not to step in the line because that can make a big difference too. Your goal may not be to make 100 in a row, but it might be 10, to get 10 in a row. It might be 50 depending on your skill level. But this is the foundation of our short game. Getting back in the rhythm, 6. Moving over, stepping the same way, 7. I also see how the breaks are starting to go from a hook break to a slice break. 8, 9, and 10. By getting this rhythm down, when I'm on the golf course and I have a pressure putt, I will step to the side and create the same rhythm that this drill, this foundation has given me. The numbers might change. 56, 57, 58. I'll even step over here to a blank ball just to keep that rhythm in my head. When I won the 2005 PGA at Baltusrol, I came to the last hole and I hit a chip shot 3 feet.
This is where years of playing these things pays off right here.
It's a good one. It's a great one.
And my arms went up because it was inside this circle. I knew I was going to make it. And as I was putting, I went to the side before the putt. 87, stepped in, 88. That's all that was in my head was those numbers.
He's the champion. And Phil's fanatics rejoice.
It helps me deal with pressure when I'm on my own to get ready for major championships, because when I'm on my own and I get into the high numbers, 88, 89, 94, 95, those last few putts are so difficult because I don't want to miss. I don't want to start back over at 1. So it gives me a goal and an opportunity to practice pressure when I'm out on my own. I just wanted to show you how to set up the 3-foot drill. I take a 7-iron. I'm trying to extend my 3-foot circle out. You can take a sandwich, start with probably a sandwich would be the best club so that you're exactly at 36 inches. But I lay the club down and I just pop a tee in the end. I reach over, lay it down, pop a tee in, reach over, and pop a tee in. So when you get done putting all 10 tees down, then go around and put the golf balls just on the side of the tee. I've moved back now to a 6-foot drill. I will do the 3-foot drill, that's my foundation. But I will spend a lot of time on 6-foot drill because at 6 feet is where the break of the putt is so much more noticeable. You have to read these putts perfectly and hit perfect speed to make them, and yet these are also the putts that we have to make to win golf tournaments. These are the putts that we have to make to shoot low scores. So I will do this circle. Now, if my goal on the 3-foot circle is 100 in a row, my goal is to get around this circle 1 time, and it is not easy. But I'm still thinking 25-75, the same technique as the 3-foot drill. Again, that's my foundation. I try to start at a straight putt because as I do that and go around the circle, I'm able to see the difference in a hook putt, in a slice putt, and it helps me read the greens out on the course. Already I missed one. It's not the easiest to pick up the read. In fact, this you can really see how much it breaks. So I'm playing that 6 inches outside the edge on these 6-foot putts. I'm watching, trying to learn the read because I know when I get out on the course, that's going to be critical. There we go. The numbers aren't going to lie. We're down to about 55-60% from 6 feet, and that's about what I'm making. In fact, it'd be nice if I could even do a little better. So I'm following the read. I'm not getting discouraged because I know that I'm going to spend a little more time on this and improve it before I go play. And then lastly, for 70%, perfect. That's right on the numbers. 70%, right where I should be. For the 6-foot drill, I take a sand wedge and I just roll it over. So I pop it in the hole and I just roll it over and put a tee down. I do it 10 times around. I have never met an amateur who reads enough break in their putts. In fact, I've only played with a couple of tour pros who read the proper amount of break. Dave Pelz did a study that high handicappers on putts over 20 feet underread their putts 100% of the time. You've got to be kidding me. So what I've done is I've set up a device here that will show you what is actually happening. I asked a scratch player to read this putt for me before we started. He said 2 cups out, thinking he was being generous on his break. So I set up the string about 8.5 inches out, just like 2 cups. Now, for me to make this putt, if I start at 8.5 inches out, I miss it low every time. I have to aim 2 feet out. But what people are seeing is important. What they're seeing is 8 inches of break, and then they have to pull or push their ball above the correct line. So this will give you a good idea visually of what's happening. If this is the line people are seeing, they're moving it above that line to give it any chance of going in the hole. And then they look at it and say, oh, see, it breaks 8 inches. No, it doesn't. And then they come out here and they say the apex is about here. The apex is about there. What are you talking about? The apex is impact. The ball is going low right off the face. Let me show you what's actually happening. I'm going to more than double his break to almost 2 feet. This way you'll see the ball start down the string. And you'll see how the ball is going low of the string the entire time. That's what's happening. Let's train ourselves to do it properly so we're reading exact amount of break so that every putt truly is a straight putt. If we do that, we don't have to push or pull our putts and compensate for our misalignment or our misreading. We have to train our eyes. We'll use this device to make sure where we're starting the ball is where we think we're starting it. It'll help us aim. Then on the golf course, we will have trained our eyes so when we look up, we know exactly where we're aimed and we're going to start making more putts. The reason why when you come out to PGA Tour events, especially major championships, you see me using these devices on the practice green. It's because every day I have to train myself to read greens properly. I have to train myself to line up properly. And so at those major championships, especially where the greens are so fast, where the breaks are that much greater, I have to retrain myself every day. And so I rely on these devices to get my feel down, to get my visual sight lines down. Now I'm in the exact same spot where we had the sticker dots, we had the elevated aim line, which was the string, and we had the putting tutor. And I removed all helpful devices because ultimately we're going to be on the golf course and we need to be able to identify this without all the help from the aids. But I know exactly what this putt does, I know where I need to aim, and I know what the speed needs to be. And so I'm trying now to be able to do that without the help of all the aids. Now, I have to identify, did I miss that putt because I played too much break, or did I miss it because I hit it too hard? And obviously I hit it too hard. So I'm going to try to do the same putt with a little bit softer speed and see if I can get it to go back in the hole. There we go. So it goes back to identifying what is truly the problem. But without all the aids, we are now ready to practice putts without the aids. Now that we know exactly what is going on, where we have to aim, we've trained our eyes to aim properly, we've trained our body to line up properly, we've trained the face to be aimed there, we've read the green properly. Now we just have to have the right feel, the right touch to get the right speed for it to go in. In earlier sections, we saw how quickly the percentage of putts made falls off exponentially around the hole. Well, when we get back to 40, 50, 60 feet, the numbers of making putts, the percentages, are so minuscule that that is not our goal. Our goal is to get these putts inside 3 feet, which we know will make the next one. A few years ago, Dave Pelz gave me this awesome drill that has become the mainstay, the foundation for my lag putting. It's the 40, 50, 60 drill where I have to hit 3 putts from each location all inside that 3-foot circle, and then finish with a 10th ball from 50 feet. When I first was given this, I said nobody has ever done this. But as I used it and practiced it more and more, my touch got better and I was able to do it. In fact, I won the 2006 Masters 2 months after getting this drill from Dave. Now, before I start though, I need to share with you technically what we're doing, because there are 2 variables in lag putting. One of them is the backstroke length. How far back do we swing? And the second is how much effort, how much energy do we use going forward? We need to take one of those variables out and make it a constant so that we only are adjusting one. We have to keep the amount of energy that we use going forward the same, and that is as much as we can. We want to swing forward as much as we can, as hard as we can, without increasing grip pressure, obviously. But that will allow us to have only the backstroke be the variable. So on this 50-foot putt, I'm going to try to go through as hard as I can, and I'll vary only the backstroke. So you see the finish was aggressive through the ball, and I hit that ball too hard. So I would have to start over and go back to a new ball. But I'm going to make a shorter backstroke with the same amount of energy going forward, and now the ball went into the 3-foot circle. Now what this is doing is building a reference for the golf course. When I get out on the course and I have a putt of 50 feet, I now have a reference. That's why I also do it uphill and downhill, because when we get out on the course, we need to have something to refer back to from our practice to help us get these putts close. So let's say I got all 3 of them in, the second 2 went in. In fact, one of them got in the hole. Then I move up to 40 feet. The energy level going forward is the same, just as hard as I possibly can, but I shorten the backstroke. Now, I'm not trying to make this, I'm trying to just get it to creep into that 3-foot circle, and it got just past those tees. I put those tees there as a visual reference for me to know if the ball got into the circle. Now, 40 feet isn't so tough, not nearly as tough as 60 feet. So I'll move all the way back here now. I'm going to have to use a little bit more backstroke, obviously, but the same effort level. So the only variable is how far back I stroke. It's important to know that downhill putts are 3-putted 3 times more often than uphill putts. So let's spend a little bit more time refining our feel and our touch on the lag drill downhill. Now again, this is building a reference for me when I get out on the golf course. I now have a feel of what a 60-foot stroke feels like. And by eliminating one of the variables, which is how hard should I go through the ball, and making it a constant, all I have to do is adjust the backstroke. And because those got in, I would just finish up here now on the 50-footer. I would drop the 10th ball, and that would also be another way where I work on pressure, because this would be my last putt. I would want desperately to get this one in so I didn't have to start all over again. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking practice strokes using that 50-foot reference that I had earlier. Obviously, I'm going through as hard as I can, using the same speed, the same constant speed going through. But I'm trying to find now at what point was that backstroke that I found that allowed me to get these 50-foot putts close. Oh yeah, it was about there. In putting, I've mentioned how there are many, many different ways to putt effectively, many different strokes that can get the ball in the hole. In chipping, that's not the case. In chipping, there is only one effective way to chip. Now, I've seen some other methods taught in some of the magazines, but I'd like to refer to those. I see 2 things being taught. One of them is referring to a clock where you go back and through the same distance. That's crazy. you take the club back so far that you have all this stored energy, and the only way to hit the ball close to the hole is to ease into it. You cannot hit chips well that way. You have to be aggressive into the ball, aggressive impact condition to be effective and consistent chipping. And when you take the club so far back, you simply have too much energy to do any of that well. The other method I hear is to lock your wrists. What? Lock your wrists? That comes in so shallow into the ball, you have no chance of hitting the ball consistently. You want to get the club up quickly, breaking your wrist, and into the ground aggressively. If anybody teaches you one of those two methods, go somewhere else. They might be great with the long game, and stick with them for that. But for short game, you've got to run and find somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. Now, the one correct way of doing it is a method I call hinge and hold, but every great chipper does it. They refer to it their own way. They break their wrist immediately going back, causing a much steeper angle of attack into the ball when they go through. They break their wrist going back. Now the club is way up here, and my arm has barely moved. From there, I hold it or accelerate going through. Let me demonstrate. I break going back, and I hold it going through. Now, if I take the club back here and I accelerate into the finish, the ball's going to go flying past the pin. We have got to be able to hit chip shots aggressively and not have the ball take off on us. We also have to continue our hands to the hole, much like we talked about in putting. If our hands stop and the club keeps going, that is the kiss of death. You have no chance if your hands stop at impact. A couple things happen. The leading edge starts coming up off the ground. That increases bounce, raising the leading edge even more, and you're going to blade it. Or you're going to hit way fat because the bottom of the arc now is about 8 inches behind the ball. We have to keep the leading edge and the bounce the same as long as we can through the impact condition. So, to hinge and hold, what I do is I just break the wrist and I hold it going through. Now when I say I hold it, what I'm doing is accelerating my hand. I'm not holding on to the club. I'm just keeping my hand moving to the target. Now if you notice, my arm and club are going to form a straight line into the finish. I'll show you again. Now look here. We have the arm and the club in a straight line. That means at no point did the club travel faster than the arm. We want that with the driver because we're trying to create distance, but here we're trying to control distance. We're trying to hit at the specific distance to the target. And the best way to do that is to have the arms and club working at the same speed. This also will allow us to be aggressive into the ball and not have it shoot off the club face. So we break our wrists and accelerate into the finish. And one more time, we're going to break our wrist and accelerate into the finish. Now, all three of those balls stayed inside the 3-foot circle. And one of the things that Dave Pelz and I really worked on is this basic easy chip shot, because this is the most critical element of our short game. Not the lob shot and the flop shot and all those fun shots, which we'll get into. But getting this shot inside our 3-foot circle that we've spent so much time on now with our putter, that's our goal. And so working on this basic chip shot, refining the technique, is critical to creating a foundation for us on the golf course. Now, as we get into the specifics of the hinge and hold, I want to talk briefly about the wedge. I use a 60-degree wedge for this shot, and it can have a number of different bounces. 6 to 9, 10 degrees of bounce is fine, any of those. And all the wedges out are terrific now. There is one little thing that I do with my wedge, and that is I like to have a deeper sole. This is the wedge I use. This narrow little sole with very little bounce here, what that does is when I open it up, I'm not hitting anything on the back. I'm not adding bounce. I like this for these shots, for the lob shot. I like it for the bunker shot. I need this little extra bounce that this wider sole provides. That's the only thing that I would say to look for when you're getting a wedge. Otherwise, the amount of bounce, it really is not going to affect it too much. Now, the one correct way of doing it is a method I call hinge and hold, but every great chipper does it. They refer to it their own way. They break their wrist immediately going back, causing a much steeper angle of attack into the ball when they go through. They break their wrist going back. Now the club is way up here and my arm has barely moved. From there, I hold it or accelerate going through. Let me demonstrate. I break going back and I hold it going through. So, to hinge and hold, what I do is I just break the wrist and I hold it going through. Now when I say I hold it, what I'm doing is accelerating my hand. I'm not holding on to the club. I'm just keeping my hand moving to the target. Now if you notice, my arm and club are going to form a straight line into the finish. We also have to continue our hands to the hole, much like we talked about in putting. If our hands stop and the club keeps going, that is the kiss of death. And so working on this basic chip shot, refining the technique, is critical to creating a foundation for us on the golf course. Now on the basic hinge and hold method, I'm set up very square to the target line, my face is very square, and my ball position is off the instep. Just like I do when I putt, just like I do when I ball strike, I try to keep my ball position the same pretty much throughout. And the face is very square. I break the wrist back, I accelerate going through, and I hit the basic hinge and hold chip shot. But sometimes we need to get the ball stopped a little quicker, and there are 3 things we can do to bring the ball in softer into the green. The first is pretty obvious, we just open up the face. And when we open up the face, we're adding loft. So I set up square and I open the face, and I open it a decent amount, not just a fraction, I lay it open. Now, there are 2 things that are going to happen if I don't make 2 adjustments, the ball will shoot to the side. One of them is I have to adjust my body until the face is aimed to the target. But the second is I then have to re-grip it. If I set up square and just turn my hands till the face is open, my hands are going to go right back to the original position. So we have to open the face. I have to adjust my body until the face is aimed to the target and then re-grip it. Let me show you again. I open up the face and I adjust my body till the face is aimed to the target, and then I again re-grip it. Now the second thing we can do to get the ball to come in softer is to come in steeper into the ball. This creates more of a friction and takes some of the forward propulsion off of the shot. We want to stop the ball being driven forward, which obviously loft did in our first segment. But in this second area of bringing the ball in softer, we want to create more of a splicing type impact condition. To do that, I put my weight forward. I move the ball fractionally forward and my weight forward, so that allows me to drive the club steeper into the ground just behind the ball. So I set up square, I open up the face and align my body till the face is aimed to the target, and then I re-grip it. And now I'm able to get the ball up even higher, softer, and get it to stop quicker. Let me show you again. What I'm doing is coming in steeper to the ball. To do that, my weight has to be forward. The ball has to be slightly forward. So I go from the original position of a basic chip shot to opening the face. I then adjust my body so the face is down the target line. My weight and ball position are forward, and I just hinge and hold right through the shot. Now the third thing that we can do to get the ball to come in even softer into the green is to take off all this forward propulsion and drive that impact causes and make an indirect impact condition. So we hit it fat like a bunker shot. We're going to open up the face, we're going to come in steeper, and we're going to drive the club in behind the ball. And let me use a tee here where the ball is, so that you'll be able to tell just how far behind the ball I'm entering into the ground. Now, if we start out with our basic chip, I open up the face, I move the ball forward in my stance and adjust my body till the face is aimed to the target. My weight is forward, and I'm going to be coming in steep, and this time I'm going to be coming in steep well behind the ball. So it's going to take a lot of energy here, a lot of force. And I'm able to hit the high lob. But if you look, you can see that I entered the ground 3 or 4 inches behind the ball. Sometimes we need to get the ball stopped a little quicker, and there are 3 things we can do to bring the ball in softer into the green. The first is pretty obvious. We just open up the face. And when we open up the face, we're adding loft. And I adjust my body till the face is aimed to the target, and then I regrip it. In this second area of bringing the ball in softer, we want to create more of a splicing type impact condition. To do that, I put my weight forward. I move the ball fractionally forward and my weight forward, so that allows me to drive the club steeper into the ground just behind the ball. I go from the original position of a basic chip shot to opening the face. I then adjust my body so the face is down the target line. My weight and ball position are forward, and I just hinge and hold right through the shot. Now the third thing that we can do to get the ball to come in even softer into the green is to take off all this forward propulsion and drive that impact causes and make an indirect impact condition. So we hit it fat like a bunker shot. We're going to open up the face, we're going to come in steeper, and we're going to drive the club in behind the ball. When you're working on the hinge and hold method and when you're working on the lob shot, there are 3 things that could go wrong. The first is when you try to bring the shot in softer, you don't feel comfortable opening up the club face enough. You need to feel comfortable laying that top of the toe all the way into the ground. That'll be an awkward feeling at first. The other thing is, I see people when they try it, try to cut across like it's hitting a cut shot. If you do that with the face wide open, you're leading with the hosel. What's going to happen? You're going to shank it. So we can't cut across the shot. We actually have to swing out down the target line. That's why we open our body. We're able to swing to the target with that open face. If we were closed, we'd have to pull across it to get that open face to go online. Otherwise, it would just shoot off into a push. So it's critical that we open up our body so that we can swing and extend to the target line. We cannot cut across it, or like I showed you, we'll shank it. The other thing that I see people do is blade it. When they blade it, what happens is their hands stop. And either they hit it fat, or more often than not, what happens is the leading edge comes up off the ground, causing the blade. We have to keep our hands ahead of the club head, moving forward. So if you're blading it, make sure that your hands are ahead of the club and you continue to accelerate forward. If you're having a problem with the lob shot or the hinge and hold, it's probably one of those 3 things. So feel comfortable opening up the face. Make sure you don't cut across it, that you open up your body enough so you can swing to the target. And if you're catching it a little thin, make sure your hands stay ahead of the club all the way up into the finish. Now the low running shot. We've talked about how to get the ball to come in softer when we need to around tight pins. But we also have times where we have plenty of green to work with and we want the ball to run and release. There are 2 ways to do this. The simplest, the easiest way is to use that same hinge and hold method we just learned, but to change clubs. So I've taken my 9-iron. I'm going to go to a pin that's about 60 feet away. I'm going to do the same hinge and hold method. It's going to be a shorter swing because the ball obviously is going to come off the face faster since I have less loft, and it's going to be releasing. But I'm going to break the wrist early, and I'm going to accelerate, and notice where my hands are going to finish. They're not going to stop at the ball. So it's the same hinge and hold, break the wrist, and follow through. And you can see the follow through, the arm and the club have formed a straight line, and it's very easy to control distance that way. Watch one more time. Same setup, break the wrist, hold it going through as I accelerate into the shot. Now, because I was lazy growing up as a kid, in my backyard when I would hit a bunch of shots from around the green that my dad made, I didn't want to change clubs after every shot. So I learned how to hit each shot with the same club. I'd like to show you how to hit a low running shot with a lob wedge. I have my 60-degree wedge, and the only thing I'm going to do differently is scoot the ball back. That's going to de-loft the club. Now, of course, the club will come into the ground steeper, and it may stick into the grass a little bit, but I'm going to use the same technique, the hinge and hold, break the wrist right away, hold it going through. So the ball's back in my stance, almost off my back foot here. I break the wrist, I accelerate through, and I'm able to hit a low running shot with a high lofted club. I love chipping. I've done it my whole life. I've had a chipping green in my backyard. I've worked hard on it. The hinge and hold method feels very easy to duplicate. I love hitting shots, but sometimes chip shots around the green are not the best play. In fact, it wasn't until I gave up my ego and love for chipping at the Masters that I finally won. 2004 was the first year that I started putting from off the green. The grass around the green was so tight, I couldn't get my lob wedge underneath the ball effectively. And so I learned and practiced putting from off the green. Now, there's really not much difference technique-wise when you putt from off the green. You may want to have the ball a little further in your stance to give it a little more loft, but not necessary. What's critical is that you don't look at the green. You've got to read the fairway. And so many times people look at the green and they feel as though it's going to be fast and they leave it short. They never give it enough effort. So what I try to do is read the fairway. I try to read the speed of it, which is why I always hit a few putts before I go play from off the green. I try to read the break, and I try to get a good feel for it. But really, nothing is different. I keep the same ball position. I just try to look only at the fairway, not the green, which is going to be drastically quicker than the fairway. Oh. So we're in pretty thick rough here, and I want to show you the principles of hitting the shot out of rough, because so many times I've had players say, I'm pretty good around the green, but I really struggle out of the rough. If that's the case, they're probably not doing the correct technique, because if they were doing the hinge and hold method, they would find that that method, along with the lob shot principles, will get the ball out of the rough just fine. We're here in thick rough. The club will get buried up by the grass. You can see the ball is sitting down. Now, we cannot rely on spin to get the ball stopped, because we have so much grass between the club and the ball. The only thing we can use is trajectory. So what we want to do is very similar to the lob shot using the hinge and hold technique. We're going to hinge and hold throughout this shot, but we're going to come in heavy just like a lob shot, and when the ball is sitting down in the rough, we're assessing our lie and we're putting our weight forward. We're driving the club in behind the ball and letting the ball just pop up high and land ever so soft. When we have the ball sitting higher up, that's when we'll level out our weight. So very similar to the lob shot, we open up the face, our weight is forward, and we just plop down right behind the ball, and we get it to pop up ever so softly and release down to the hole. Now obviously it won't be as good as a shot from the fairway, but we can use trajectory to get the ball stopped. Using those same principles, if the ball somehow sits up in the rough like this, we cannot use that method of driving the club into the ground. We'll go right underneath it. So again, using the same type of flop shot, lob shot principles, we level out our weight so that the bottom of the arc is shallow around the ball. We open up the face slightly, but we don't lay it flat like we did for the previous shot where the ball's sitting down. So we open it up, but just not as much, and then we just use the same swing. And I'm able to get the ball up high and soft and control it somewhat. So not always when we're in the rough are we trying to get the ball to land softly. A lot of times we can be in the rough and the pin can be in back and we need the ball to release. So when we do that, we still are not going to be able to catch the ball solidly. We have grass in between the club and the ball. So what we do here is the same technique of falling in behind the ball, letting the club just fall right in behind the ball, but we scoot the ball back in our stance and square up the club face. This is going to give it less loft and force the ball out lower out of the rough and with more release. You can see the ball is further back in my stance, letting the club come into the ground behind the ball. We're not trying to catch the ball first. There's too much grass there. So we're playing like a little mini flop shot, even though the face is square, and we're trying to get it to release. You can see the ball is further back in my stance, and I just drive the club behind the ball, and I let the ball pop up and release. It'll help us get to the back pins or in. So you've learned the basic chip shot, the hinge and hold method, and we've done it to a close pin, but it also applies to many other distances from 50 yards in. As we move the pin back and make it a 20-yard shot, I want you to see that it's exactly the same. I set up the same, square to the hole, club face is square, I break the wrist going back, and I accelerate into the finish. You can see the club and the arm still form a straight line. Now, if I want the ball to come in softer, it's the same thing we talked about. I can just open up the face using the same technique. So I set up, square, I open up the face a little bit, I then readjust my body till the face is aimed at the target, and I re-grip the club. Same motion. Hinge and hold. And as I accelerate into the finish, you can see the club and the arm form a straight line. Now as I get to 40, 50-yard shots, it'll come up here and it might break slightly. That's not important. What's important is through impact, the club and arm are traveling at the same speed. The leading edge and the bounce are remaining constant for a long period of time. We have a 30-yard shot here. This is where we start to lose our confidence, but we shouldn't. It's just an extension of the hinge and hold, a slightly larger chip. Now, we've already removed one of the variables, just like lag putting. Lag putting, we have backstroke and through, and we keep the through stroke constant as firm as we can. We're using those same principles for this longer chip. We're going to just make a further backstroke using the same acceleration. We don't want to get into this 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock where we have to take the club back so far and ease into it. We're using the hinge and hold method. We're breaking our wrist and accelerating it into the finish. Only our backswing is a little longer than a chip, but a heck of a lot shorter than a full swing. This way I'm able to go into the ball aggressively. I'm going to hit a little chip shot first. I want you to see how similar they are. I break my wrist and I accelerate going through. Everything is the same. I'm going to do the same exact thing. As I accelerated through, my hands and club formed a straight line. This is going to be no different. I'm going to make a further backswing and accelerate into the finish. And you can see the arm and the club are in a straight line. This allows me to go aggressively into the golf ball and not have it shoot off my face. I'm able to control the distance. That's what we're after. We need to be able to get these shots inside our 3-foot circle. This is where we're going to score. This is where we're going to win our championships. It could be a NASA or the club championship, or it could be the Masters. This is where it matters. Now we're at 50 yards. This shot feels so uncomfortable for so many, but once you have the foundation of the hinge and hold method, this shot is just an extension of a chip. We're not doing that much different other than just elongating the chip shot. We're going to break our wrists early. We're going to accelerate into our finish. This isn't even close to a regular swing. We're not taking the club way back and easing into the ball to hit this shot. Heavens no. What's critical about this is the same thing that's critical about chipping and about the 30-yard shot. We need the leading edge. We need the bounce to go through the ground the same for as long a period of time. That's where the hinge and hold method comes into play. Once we break our wrist and we accelerate our hands into the finish, the arm and club are traveling at the same speed, making distance control easy. But more than that, the leading edge and the bounce are consistent for a longer period of time through impact, making these shots come off much more consistently. So I'm going to hit a 30-yard shot where I break my wrist and accelerate through. And you're going to see how a 50-yard shot isn't much different from that one. All I do, similar to our lag putting, where in lag putting we took away one of the two variables. We have the backswing length, but the follow-through and the forward swing is at a constant, which is as hard as we feel comfortable swinging. We do that same energy level, that same effort level every time. We just vary the backswing. Same thing when we start elongating our chipping. We get back to 50 yards, all we're doing is going back slightly farther, and we're still accelerating into the ball. So then from that 30-yard shot, this 50-yard shot is going to look very similar, only a little longer backswing. We're able to make consistent contact and have these 30 and 50-yard shots feel like chip shots, because our goal is to get each one of these inside our 3-foot circle.